There's an article over at off-guardian.org. You can find it on, if you don't want to search for it over there, you can always find it over at discern.tv/WHODNA, WHODNA, and check it out. It's a very long article. And generally speaking, when you have these comprehensive articles, such as this one, which is titled "How Your DNA is Being Used Against You," I usually just leave it as it is. I don't add commentary to it because there's really not much for me to add normally. But this time there's something that I definitely must add to this particular article because they get so close. Author Karen Hunt, she really nails it. It's very comprehensive. It's like 3 or 4 thousand words. Nice long read, definitely worth reading. Has so much information that is super relevant to us today. But and she's talking about the collection of DNA, how our DNA is not only being collected, but how it's being weaponized in multiple ways. Obviously the one that I think a lot of people have been talking about lately is utilizing DNA collection to be able to analyze it in a way that enables foul players, whether it's the Chinese Communist Party or Russia or even our own government, how they can use this DNA information to be able to craft biological weapons against us, weapons that target specific groups, specific races, specific individuals. This is definitely possible. Anybody who saw the last James Bond movie, yeah, that was kind of the premise behind the entire weapon was based around DNA, and you could encode basically this poison that would kill people pretty much instantly, and it would only kill them. It wouldn't kill anybody around them because it was coded to their DNA. This all sounds like science fiction, and in that case it is, but it's real. I mean, this is definitely possible today. Now, I don't know what stage they're in. We would never know, by the way. I mean, if they do have this mastered, perfected, if they have the ability to target a specific race, a specific type of person, it doesn't just have to be racially motivated. They can use DNA indicators for, just as an example, for people who are obese or who have genetic disposition towards obesity. Maybe they want to get rid of all the fat people. I mean, I'm not saying that that's what they want to do, but that's what they could do. They could do that. Maybe they found genetic markers that are inherent in majority of conservatives. I don't know. I mean, you can't really dismiss the possibilities when it comes to science today because it is far more advanced than we know. They aren't telling us everything they can do, and that should concern you. But then again, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it anyway other than pray. So I guess it really shouldn't concern you. Just if it happens, it happens. Point being is that that's just one of the ways they can use it for tracking. And it's not just for the people that are actively giving their DNA over to these, DNA ancestry.com places. And it's not just the people that are taking the swabs and sending them off to be analyzed and have their DNA collected that way. And it's not just prisoners. They're finding passive ways of doing it. And this article actually goes into what's called eDNA. That's right, eDNA, environmental DNA. This is where they collect wastewater and any form of water. It's not just wastewater. They can collect water. They can collect air samples. Your DNA is everywhere around you. Okay, as you breathe, you're spreading your DNA. As you walk around anywhere, you're spreading your DNA. Very underrated movie. Underrated in that it had a great premise, but it was flawed in many ways. But it was called Gattaca, I believe that was what it was called. It had Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman in it. It wasn't a great movie, but the premise was strong. Basically, in the not too distant future, they're able to use CRISPR technology to make perfect babies, and those that aren't perfect, they don't get the good jobs. They're used, the ones that don't get modified are the ones that are janitors, whereas the pilots and detectives and whatever politicians and doctors, those are all the genetically perfected people. Well, that's what they're shooting for today. That's what they're pushing for, except they're sort of not. They're not really trying to do this for mankind. They're trying to do this for themselves, they being the globalist elite cabal. This article also dives a lot into the WHO and the push to give the WHO tremendous amounts of power. We've talked about that ad nauseum for a long time. But one of the things that it doesn't note in here that I've seen recently, they're talking about something that I've been talking about for over a year now, which is it's not just about giving the WHO a ton of power. It's also about associating climate change with healthcare. Okay, if you do those two things, okay, if you make it to where the WHO is super powerful, climate change is considered part of their scope, part of their charter, then all of a sudden they have the ability to do pretty much anything to control every aspect of our lives, because climate change is the skeleton key to control. Okay, you can associate climate change to literally anything: the clothes you wear, the food you eat, where you live, how you live, who you're around, who you're not around. And of course, then if they want this all tied into the passports that they want to give us, that will control everything, that will say where, if you can go and travel here, travel there, shop here, shop there. It'll probably also at some point have control over our money through central bank digital currencies. There's a whole lot of different rabbit holes we can go down that are all parts of their plans, their machinations. We're not going to do that today. I just want to focus in on one thing, that this article. And let me read a little bit of it so you get a flavor for what we're talking about. This in particular is talking about the collection of eDNA, which I think a lot of people don't realize is happening. But this is how they were able to detect, for example, polio in New York City. It wasn't that they weren't going around and checking people for polio. They were collecting wastewater and finding it there. They're doing this in major cities across the country, across the world. What started off to monitor violent criminals or sex offenders is now a way to collect the DNA of any person of interest, but that isn't all. Over the years, scientists have been perfecting their methods for collecting DNA and have turned their attention to environmental DNA, or eDNA, an inexpensive tool for ecologists. eDNA is everywhere, floating in the air, water, snow, food, your last cup of coffee. The eDNA technology is used in wastewater surveillance systems to monitor COVID and other pathogens. Wastewater surveillance systems. Who would have thunk it? 10 years ago, who would have thought, oh, they're going to be checking our poop and our pee to collect our DNA. A study demonstrated that scientists could recover medical and ancestry information from minute fragments of human DNA lingering in the environment. DNA of specific individuals can be recovered from spaces such as office buildings, apartment buildings, airports, restaurants. Recently, researchers descended on the small town of St. Augustine, Florida, and from a soda can-sized sample of water from a creek, they recovered enough mitochondrial DNA passed directly from mother to child for thousands of generations to generate a snapshot of the genetic ancestry of the population around the creek. One mitochondrial sample was even complete enough to meet the requirements for the Federal Missing Persons Database. They also found key mutations shown to carry a higher risk of diabetes, cardiac issue, or several eye diseases. In other words, so not only are they talking about this as far as what this can do, but they're also trying to sell it to you. They're also saying, oh, this can be put into the missing persons database. So a kid gets kidnapped. 10 years later, we detect that kid's DNA in the wastewater in Omaha, and now we can start narrowing it down and then find the kid. It's all good stuff, and we can reduce your risk of diabetes, cardiac issues, eye diseases, whatever. I mean, that's how they sell it. That's how they sell everything. That's how they really push these technologies that can have very, very detrimental effects on us. I've already mentioned what they can do as far as being able to use bioweapons that are specifically tailored to us or to our particular group, or to what. It doesn't have to be us, to anybody. They can take out anyone they want with this, and none could be the wiser. And again, if you think that this technology is decades away, it's either years away or months away, or it's already here. Again, we won't know about it until it's actually out there. Back to the article. Knowing the DNA of an ethnic group means that they could be targeted with biowarfare. She goes into a very long explanation of why this is the case, but I want to get to this part. All of this leads us to the CDC's announcement of its new traveler-based genomic surveillance program. Let me repeat that: traveler-based genomic surveillance program. International travelers arriving at participating airports can volunteer. Oh yes, it always starts with volunteers, to self-collect nasal swab samples, which are then shipped to a laboratory network. Samples that test positive for SARS-CoV-2 undergo whole genome sequencing to determine variants. However, do not think that this is in any way just about COVID. COVID was the excuse to set up a system for tracking and monitoring ordinary citizens. The CDC and Ginkgo Bioworks, I don't know how to pronounce it, are leading the future of disease surveillance. And they list off a press release, and they go into what is Ginkgo Bioworks. And again, I cannot stress enough. Go to discern.tv/WHO DNA to read this article as soon as you have time, because it is going to take a little while. As soon as you have time, and it's well worth it. But I want to focus on what's not here. Okay, what's not here, what they're not talking about, and they are talking about it, but they're not calling it out by name, and that is transhumanism. This is a move for the transhumanist agenda. Those who are not familiar, transhumanism is all about, okay, it's all about being able to take your, your body, your mind, not your soul, God forbid, but take your body and your mind and enhance them in ways that will allow you to be better, to be stronger, to be smarter, to be faster, to live longer, which is the ultimate goal of most active and engaged transhumanists like the Ray Kurzweils of the world. They believe that through technology, through technological interfaces, through mind chips, and through proper supplements, dozens, hundreds of supplements taken per day, through chemical changes, not just within our own bodies and our own local environments, but the environment as a whole. Again, this all ties back to giving the WHO the power to be the action arm of the globalist elite cabal. They will use all this. With transhumanism, they are essentially trying to create human chimeras. They are trying to make it to where we are no longer who we are. They're trying to change our DNA. They're trying to change and connect us through computer systems, through airwaves, the very 5G and all this stuff. And I know if you're not into conspiracy theories, all this sounds crazy, but all of this is very, very real. That's what they want. This is why Elon Musk is working on Neuralink. Neuralink, literally putting chips in your brain to connect you to the internet. This is why you see this technology that's able to, put right in front of your eyeballs, and eventually inside your eyeballs, connecting directly to the optic nerve. They're going to be able to allow people to have direct connections to the internet. And not the internet. This will be a variation of the internet that is far more powerful than what we know of today. This isn't about going to yahoo.com with your eyeballs. This is about having access to vast arrays of information, especially through social media and being able to connect. If you've watched any science fiction, you've seen variations of this. If you've ever watched Dark Mirror, you've seen variations of this. These future ideas, something similar to what they're talking about is the goal. But here's the thing. What they don't talk about in most of these, at least they don't, they'll get people to do it willingly, but they'll also force some people to do it. The idea here is that if you are not engaged as a transhumanist, then you are anti-transhuman. You are anti-human, because they will try to eventually replace humanity itself. And then we will, again, as we've grown accustomed to in recent years, we will be further put as outcasts in our own world. This is why I'm so adamant about denying this. I'm not encouraging anybody to engage in any form of violence or terrorism or anything to try to stop it. This is above our pay grade. It's out of our hands. We can stop it by warning people, at least stop it locally and within our own families and friends. We can make sure that we expose the truth, but even then, all we're doing is delaying. We're not stopping it. Only God could stop this if he so chooses, because that's how advanced they are. That's how far they've gone. They have the money, they have the power, they have the press, they have academia, they have the doctors. And I'm not saying that everybody in academia and all doctors and all politicians and all members of the press are all evil. They're just controlled in some way. This is why it's so important that we are aware of this stuff and we avoid it. Do not do whatever you can to have your DNA given at all. Don't, I know that it's very popular. I know people who are using, whatever, ancestry.com or any of those various places. They're willfully giving their DNA. They're swabbing to test for this, that, or the other, and they're sending it off to China. They're doing everything. They're collecting the DNA, and it's bad. It's bad stuff, folks. Bad stuff. Don't do it. Get ready. Get out of the cities. Do whatever you can. All right. That's my my conspiratorial rant of the day. I think I made it very clear over the last couple of years that I am a big, huge fan of physical precious metals. I've worked with multiple companies during that time, and I've finally found one that I can wholeheartedly endorse, not just because they do good business, they do it the right way, they don't try to rip people off, but perhaps more importantly, because they are a Christian company. They check off two major boxes, at least as far as I'm concerned. Genesis Gold Group does fantastic work helping people transfer their IRAs, their 401ks, their government retirement plans, whatever you've got, with your money being probably invested into woke ESG funds without your knowledge, or maybe even with your knowledge, risky endeavors. Hey, now's the time. When you look around, you see inflation, you see the banks doing their thing, oftentimes closing or even just staying open and closing your accounts. When you see what's happening with recession, stagflation, BRICS, de-dollarization, it's concerning, but you don't have to be concerned, at least not with your life's savings. You can go to jdrgold.com. That's jdrgold.com. Contact Genesis Gold Group and see what they can do to help you. It's worth a try, right? At least see what they have to say. They're not going to try to sell you, we'll give you $10,000 in free silver if you just, transfer. And don't worry, we're only making a $299 fee off of it. This is free silver. It fell off a truck. I don't even know what they say, but they won't try to do anything like that. They're just going to deal with you honestly and help you to secure your life savings. Go to jdrgold.com for Genesis Gold Group.